Okay, a little improv one. I was I was listening to several things this morning, my go-tos, people that I'm great admirers of, and I was intrigued by something. Um, Butch Ware, a man I admire immensely, based on what he said and believe what he does out there with the Green Party and independent politicking in California. Um, and he's said interesting things about Mamdani. And the thing that I don't understand about the Mamdani doubters um, is I share much doubt with them, but it's irrelevant to me. What is relevant, just as it was with Bernie, and he has his doubters and people who feel like they've been betrayed, etc., etc., is it speaks to a kind of a version of politics or democracy that is extremely elitist to me. It isn't Zoran, it is New York. It is a population that left or right elitists, and this is distressing for me on the left because I consider it to be unleft. There's a streak of elitism, which is part of the Republican versus democracy argument, that is, when he goes to see Donald Trump, and let's be honest about the Donald Trump thing, he goes in there, he asks for the meeting, immediately Donald Trump feels like he's ahead. They go and they have the meeting, and it's, particularly with Trump, it's a sort of exercise in flattery. Zoran and most Democrats respond to Trump as if he is Beelzebub. And the fact that the young man walks into his office and asks for a meeting and comes in and probably shakes his hand, etc., 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 is a sort of victory for that kind of a man. And we should be clear about what that kind of man is, or a possible version of it, because the left-wing version, and I hesitate to call them left-wing, I would say the Democrat version, it's, left has become meaningless to me these days. The Democrat version is he's this sort of Machiavellian brute. And what I thought about was that, just reflected briefly on the fact that Mussolini and Hitler and Stalin, for instance, as these awful tyrants and dictators, and history, our elitist version of history says it's their fault. And this came up in an argument with my sister, where she said, well, Stalin was an atheist, so it's not about the religion. And I'm going, so 1,500 years of Russian Orthodoxy suddenly disappears because Stalin, the people who supported Stalin, the people who did his bidding and drafted the terrible proclamations and purged and did all those sorts of things, were people steeped in Russian Orthodoxy. Come on. It's said that Mussolini was an atheist. So what? The Italians were massively Catholics. The fascism comes out of, it's not a criticism of the religion, fascism can come from any belief system. But it did very well with Catholicism and with Russian Orthodoxy. That suits, the democracy, so far as our version of it, so we interpret it, was invented by pagans. And I put it to you, and I think it's very, very unlikely that had paganism not done it, Christianity never would have, without question, nor Islam, nor Judaism. So, but the thing that I did think was that these dictators immensely enjoy, they seem to greatly enjoy, something in the flattery. They have a version of talent in terms of rhetoric. Hitler clearly did, and Trump has a similar version, Mussolini did, that riles up a certain kind of a person. And that certain kind of a person then gets deeply motivated. That is where fascism lies. If you want a good example of the kinds of things that where fascism is possible, read the oration, the funeral oration by Mark Antony. It's a piece of genius in that sort of thing. So what I'm hearing in the discussion now, Butch Ware is, and I have to state this, I am a white male. So my version, my response to the Donald Trumps of this world is going to be different. Is going to be different. I'm not threatened in the same way. I'm not threatened historically. I'm not threatened in the present the way a black man is. That's just the way that it is. And I just have to acknowledge that. But at the same time, my own take is that Mamdani's not the best person in my mind because of the way he uses language. I balk at that a bit. It's so clever. And the clever language that I've heard over the years from Bill Clinton, certainly Barack Obama and people like that, and people before them, I listen to it and I go, I think you're trying to impress me with your cleverness rather than actually telling me something. He has other massive talents. I'm not knocking him. But what I am saying is that something's happened in New York and he triggered it or he wrote it. But the important thing is what's happened in New York. And it's largely happened in New York because of an economic reality which has been visited upon us, not just by Republicans, but by Democrats, by basically our value system, which is that some members of our society can earn astonishing amounts of money with no qualms, and what we basically do is we harbor this admiration of these. I have no admiration for these people, none at all. As I said to a friend, I said, in my long life, I've never met an interesting rich person. I've met very, very few interesting, highly educated people. And when I say interesting, I mean people of some sort of originality, which is what I find interesting. A kind of charm, a kind of, talent, really. I have a friend right now who continues to amaze me with that kind of talent. So, I keep hearing this reiterated, and I keep stepping back from the community that's supposed to represent the left. When I listen to Finkelstein, and that's an original creature. When I listen to him, there can be 10 or 15 men and women who have the same sentiments. I think the Albanese, is that her name? The Italian, whatever they call her. She has a similar kind of thing. And people I've heard in the past have a kind of this ability to be believable. And unfortunately, because of the cult of aren't I clever, which seems to dominate the left, it doesn't dominate the right because they're all sort of, doing their John Wayne thing. I can listen to Marjorie Taylor Greene, a very interesting person and where she's been at and what she's done. But I'm not, I hear it. I hear that theocracy. I hear it's all about God and family and all the rest of it. And I go, okay, well then, I'm glad you choose to be a human being as well as a believer or as a mom. But I'm just expressing something that I find I balk at. I'm not hearing the truth. I'm hearing a manipulation of the truth. Not from Butch Ware. I mean, he's very clear, but he uses those tropes, and I hear them. And because I don't find the Trump meeting menacing or a sign of anything that's going off or wrong or anything like that.